Well, thank you very much, everyone. Please be seated. So, welcome to you all to today's full council meeting. Especially welcome to members of the public who are attending in the public gallery, and also those in the conference hall, and those who may be watching the meeting via our YouTube channel. For those in the building, I would like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedures, which should be displayed on the screens shortly. But in essence, please leave the chamber as quickly as possible by the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. As with any council meeting, please treat each other with due courtesy, tolerance and respect. I would also like to take the opportunity to congratulate our latest member, Councillor Carol Johnson. There we are. Welcome back. Good to see you again. And also, best of luck to those members making their maiden speeches today. Agenda item 2 is apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillors Blake, Breckles, Ralston and Russell. Are there any other apologies? Thank you. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. Please can I ask whether any councillors have any interest to declare regarding the items on today's agenda? Thank you. Agenda item 4 is minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meeting of full council held on the 21st of May 2024 and the extraordinary full council held on the 3rd of June 2024 be agreed as a correct record. Do I have a seconder?
I second the minutes, Lord Mayor, and reserve my remarks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilcox. Can I take it that the minutes are agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 5 is Lord Mayor's business. Members may recall that my theme as Lord Mayor this year is to celebrate Bristol's international connections. Thus far, I have participated in events with our twin cities of Guangzhou, Porto and Hanover. And tomorrow I will be attending an event with our twin city of Bordeaux, followed by the AGM of the Bristol International Twinning Association. I have also attended events celebrating Bristol's diverse communities, including the Sparks Cultural Festival and events with the Polish and Greek diaspora. And I look forward to visiting more events with our international diaspora in the year ahead. I would now like to take this opportunity to call upon the leader of the council to say a few words about the recent housing regulators assessment. Councillor Dyer, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I wish to address an important issue relating to the council's housing estate and residents who live in council-owned housing. We have and are writing to all residents living in council housing to make them aware of a judgment published today by the regulator of social housing. This judgment sets out that as things stand, the council does not meet national quality and safety standards, highlighting a number of shortfalls in the council's current arrangements which require substantial improvement. My message to those in the public gallery and residents across the city, including those residents of Guilton House who are here today, is we apologise for the failure to meet the necessary standards. However, I can assure you that the council has taken urgent action to resolve these issues. And you can expect us to improve our communications so you are kept informed of the progress we are making. All residents living in council housing should expect this council, as their landlord, to deliver a high standard of housing and comply with national requirements. These are expectations that we as councillors should demand of ourselves. Today's judgment comes off the back of the council referring itself to the regulator earlier this year, following a review which highlighted issues with meeting the necessary levels of compliance under new regulations. Since then, the council has been working proactively to develop a detailed improvement plan with a priority on safety issues. which means addressing the backlog of some of the regular checks we must undertake as a landlord. We are also undertaking a programme of repairs and refurbishment and addressing issues with the quality of our record keeping. Already progress is being made. We have a new programme board to oversee and drive forward improvements. We have completed around 700 electrical tests since April 2024. We have tested or fitted new carbon monoxide detectors to 95% of homes with a gas boiler. And we are starting a significant programme of stock condition surveys, aiming to complete 10,000 this year and a further 10,000 next year. I also want to be clear, systemic issues in the social housing sector are being seen right across the country. As a result, we joined some 40 other councillors who have received similar judgments over the last 10 years. Whilst we will focus our energies on improving standards locally, we'll also be joining other councillors to offer to work with the newly elected government to find solutions. I understand, as a former council tenant myself, that this will be a worrying time for residents, and many will have concerns and questions about their housing. And addressing the issues that have been identified by the regulator as soon as possible. And once again, I offer my apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. We now move on to agenda item 6, which is public forum. 30 minutes will be allowed for this item. This is usually split into 15 minutes for petitions and statements and 15 minutes for questions. However, due to the small number of statements on the agenda, more time will be given to questions up to the 30-minute limit. Details of the petitions, statements and questions received have been published on our website. I'll go through the list, calling on those that have indicated they plan to attend the meeting. Speakers are asked to pay attention to the traffic lights on the dais and to start to wrap up when the lights turn to amber. There were no public forum petitions received for this meeting. There were a total of 3 public statements received, and a list will be displayed on the screen. 3 members of the public indicated that they plan to attend and speak to their statements. They are displayed on the screen, and we'll run through those statements in order. I'll invite each person to speak for a maximum of 1 minute. Please summarise your statement and bear in mind they were published for councillors and the public to read in advance of the meeting. So first, do we have Colin Smith here today? Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The statement, I hope that all members will read themselves. So this is a brief resume of it. May I echo the eloquent words of Alderman Colin Smith, my colleague here, in requesting some permanent recognition of the late Alderman William Payne, and his work nationally with the Infected Blood campaign. Both he and his brother suffered from haemophilia from birth. Bill had been diagnosed with the rarer and more severe haemophilia B and was treated with, as it turned out, compromised factor 8 and factor 9 medication. His widow, by the way, and family members are in the public gallery. I must say it was a very great shock to see Bill's photograph amongst many others recently on the BBC Points West programme. A whole series of photographs were flashed up and Bill's was amongst them. And this was about the blood transfusion scandal and the needless deaths and terrible consequences that resulted. At least 30,000 people in the UK alone, including many children, were infected by tainted blood supplied from America, not screened or heat treated here, which added to the scandal, Over 3,000 died prematurely from infections such as HIV, AIDS, hepatitis C, and one of those deaths unfortunately included Bill's brother. So I would earnestly request that the City Council could, in some small way, recognise this terrible tragedy in memory of our former quiet and assuming colleague and friend, Bill Payne. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much for that statement. Obviously, it's such a serious issue. It's a national scandal. I did allow you to go over the minute that we normally allow, but thank you so much for bringing that to us. But if other speakers could stick to the minute, that would be great. So next we have Mr. Gary Hopkins on CAT transfers. Is Gary here?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is urgent that the terms of the community asset transfers and interaction with organisations that serve the public interest in Bristol are reviewed. As an example, Jubilee Pool was handicapped from accessing central government funds specifically designed to assist swimming pools. BCC is not awash with funds. I think everyone acknowledges that, and fully recognising the good that organisations can do in terms of social value would be far more productive than just looking at part of the short-term financial aspects of part of the council when deciding what terms should be applied. This matter should have been debated last year, but can I get an assurance that this will now be reviewed urgently, as many of the voluntary organisations are requesting? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins. And next up is Mr. Nigel Varley on fire risk. Is Nigel here?
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Gilton House Tenants Association, which is represented here. In view of Councillor Dyer's statement and this which has appeared today, all I can say is that our statement is fully justified. Dealing with council housing department officers on important matters like fire safety and on the removal of cladding has been like swimming in treacle. It's taken ages and ages and ages to get nowhere, except finally, after we submitted these questions, things are beginning to move. I'd just like to draw your attention to the final sentence of the statement, which is that if things are going to improve in Bristol, there has to be a cultural change amongst officers. They have to proactively provide tenants with information. They have to engage with us. You name it, I'm on it. I'm on the service user groups, the Housing Forum, the Housing Management Board, and we just talk and get nowhere, fobbed off all the time, and that has got to stop. Councillor Dyer, if you really want to achieve your aims, a culture has to change.
Thank you very much for sticking to that 1 minute as well. Perfect. So we will now move on to the public questions received. The questions received have been published on the website and are shared on the screen now. 14 questions were received from members of the public. 9 of those have indicated that they wish to attend. We will try to cover as many questions as possible in the time available. It may not be possible for everyone to speak, so we ask for your patience as we run through the questions in order. When I call on you, please read your question out and we'll try to show the question on the screen. The leader or the relevant chair will reply verbally. Following the response, you'll be invited to ask a supplementary question. Please remember, you have a maximum of 2 supplementary questions. So first we've got David Carslake, public question 1. Is David here? Yep. And David, you've got 2 questions on closing cycle lanes for Councillor Plowden. They're quite short questions. Do you want to ask them both together? And you don't need to read the preamble as well.
Yeah, that'd be fine. So it's about the way that when roadworks are done, the first response seems to be to close cycle lanes, and if they're diverted over a short length of pavement, it seems automatic that we get a cyclist dismount sign. which I feel is often unnecessary and demonises cyclists and perhaps also risks crying wolf if there ever was a real danger to cycling somewhere. So my question is, does council guidance to contractors allow these signs only in special circumstances when they are absolutely necessary, or does it rather encourage their universal use regardless of the negative consequences for cyclists? And I'd also like to ask whether alternative signs are available, because in my opinion, in most cases, a more appropriate sign would be something like cyclists proceed with caution, or cyclists give way to pedestrians when cyclists are directed to use the pavement. Thanks.
David, thank you very much for coming in today, and I must say I completely agree with you. The cyclist dismount sign has no place in the city except in very rare occasions. It's no longer part of the approved guidance from government to have such a sign. There's been a lot of social media content recently regarding this, and so I have taken this up with the traffic team, and they say that they only use it in exceptional circumstances where there's a very narrow stretch of pavement where there's no other alternative. Other than this, we completely agree that something like proceed with caution or give way to pedestrians would be reflective of the hierarchy for transport, and that should be used. But we do make utilities and contractors aware of this policy, and we don't want to see this in the city. Wherever we look at, have a chance to look at the drawings, which is normally for the bigger schemes, so sometimes the smaller schemes slip through, then we make that comment that that should not be provided, and we want to see something else. Ideally, we would actually like to see something specific for cyclists, but that's obviously not always possible. Sometimes we can't do that, in which case please tell us where it's been got wrong by the contractor, because they've been it's very clear to them that they shouldn't be using it, and we will do our best to respond. I think it is worth saying that our standards are probably higher than some other authorities, and some of the utilities and contractors work across multiple authorities, and so they don't always get that right, and that is acceptable in other places. So I hope that helps.
David, you've got 2 supplementary questions if you wish.
I'm quite happy with that answer, thank you. I'll look forward to seeing things improve.
Me too. As a regular cyclist, I hate those signs, so thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to public question 2, Gary Hopkins on Jubilee Pool. Gary, you've got 3 questions. If you'd like to summarise your first question, please, and those are questions for the leader.
Yes, I mean, firstly, to say that the pool has been a tremendous success since moved into local control, despite the onerous terms of the CAT. Can I ask, therefore, that the new administration look at the terms of that CAT to make sure that they're happy, that they're fair, and that that can be done urgently? The management of the pool were faced with an ultimatum. Either you agree to these terms or we'll shut the pool straight away. So it's not surprising that they accepted some terms which were less than generous. So I'm asking the leader if this can now be reviewed.
Thank you, Gary. If you send me more detail about your particular concerns about the CAT transfer, then I will promise to look at them and review.
Gary, do you have a supplementary for that question?
No, that one's fine, thank you. And 2, last financial year, the Area 5 committee was prevented from making a local SIL grant to Jubilee Pool by an intervention from the Mayor's office, with a statement that the terms of a previous cabinet decision prevented the granting of local SIL funds. Is this healthy?
All I say, Gary, is I'm not going to comment on what happened previously, but provided the use of community infrastructure levy is in line with the relevant regulations, then it is, of course, very conceivable that the appropriate area committee could agree to a new award of funding.
And actually, I put it down as 2, but it was separated out by officers. So the third question is, can I now get an assurance that in future Jubilee Pool would not be specifically penalised in this way, and that the future committee will have their handcuffs removed?
I can assure you that any applications that come to area committees for community infrastructure levy will be treated equally and appropriately.
Gary, do you have a supplementary?
No, I'm very happy with those answers, and I'll make certain the detail gets to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next is public question number 3 from Irene Evans on Gilton House. Is Irene here? Okay. Irene, you asked one question. If you'd like to summarise it, please.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Gilton House is a block of 48 flats and is supported housing for the over 60s, undergoing renovation works including the replacement of inflammable insulation cladding. Replacing the insulation cladding began in February 2023 and finished in March 2024. For 2 winters, we were without insulating cladding, having either to endure the cold or pay hundreds of pounds extra in heating cost. On the 28th of February, the council agreed to include in this year's budget £150,000 to compensate tenants in blocks that has been without installation. To date, we have received nothing. We now understand it is being referred to the Homes and Housing Delivery PCCB, whatever that is, on 15th of July. If we are to receive anything, it will be in August of the earliest, 6 months after the decision. Compensation, will it be paid? And if so, how much each and when? And why have we been given no clear explanation of what is causing the delay?
Thank you, Irene. That's a question for Councillor Parsons.
Thank you for coming in, Irene, and talking to us today. And thanks to all the members of the Gilton House Tenants Association as well. So I think like a lot of people in this room, I've lived in a cold house and I know what it's like. And particularly, I think if you're older, so I really do, I sympathise with the experiences that you've had. So yeah, the previous administration committed to providing a discretionary payment to people who've been affected by this, the cladding removal and replacement, and we absolutely intend to honour that. So I was made aware of this commitment when I became chair of the committee towards the end of May, and so obviously you'll understand, I think, that it takes officers a while to go from a budget line to a properly worked out scheme. So that's really why it's taken some time to get to this point. So it will be coming to, as you say, the PCCB, which is the Policy Committee Chair's briefing. So that's something that's attended by myself and by Councillor Eddy, who's the Vice Chair of the committee. So that we can look at what the officers propose, and we're expecting to be able to make an announcement on that at the end of July.
Irene, do you have a supplementary question? Okay.
Thank you.
So now we go on to public question 4, which is Jeff Sutton on tower block fire risks. Is Jeff here? Yeah. Jeff, you've got one question. If you could summarise the question, please. And that's also for Councillor Parsons.
Will the council recognise and attempt to resolve, through negotiations, problems created for residents of tower blocks with mobility issues caused by the enforcement of fire regulations? These require the removal of mobility scooters from landings. There is nowhere else to put them. Flat entrances are too small and there's no charging room. The effect is to imprison elderly and disabled residents in their homes, which besides being cruel is discriminatory. Fire hazard removal notices given without discussion or provision of an alternative have caused much distress. Disabled residents are also at risk from the lack of personal evacuation plans and refuges. Gilton House Tenants Association has proposed a quick, easy and cheap solution to the problem in our block by requesting the creation of a charging space in the foyer. We hope the council will support this.
Thank you, Jeff. So as we've heard earlier, I think with the leader's statement, new regulations around fire risk and things do present the council with a lot of challenges around how we manage our blocks, and we absolutely recognise that that storage and use of mobility scooters is something that we need to resolve. So there is going to be a comprehensive policy for ownership and storage of mobility scooters. And that's going to be coming to the Housing Committee, which I chair in September, on the 10th of September. I've been advised by officers that it wouldn't be feasible to provide communal charging facilities in a foyer area because this could compromise the fire safety of the building. But there is a programme to deliver solutions for mobility scooter storage in blocks. It's going to be a challenging programme to deliver, as I said, and the solutions will vary from one block to the next, so different sites will require different solutions, but we will be working with residents on that.
And Jeff, do you have a supplementary question?
Have you got any offers of where people can store these mobility scooters? And I suppose the other burning issue there is why once the council created a charging room, it was behind a scaffolding that's been up for over 2 years, so it's not accessible by the residents. And nothing was looked at that time to come up with an alternative that would keep everybody happy, the council, the fire officers and the residents.
Yeah. I think I'll have to go back to officers and get an answer for you on that, because I'm not sure about the specifics of that particular storage, if that's okay. Thanks.
Do the residents need to move?
Thank you. You only have one supplementary, I'm afraid, so we'll stop at that point. Thank you very much, Councillor Parsons. If I can move on to public question 5, and that's Sue Smith. The topic is Gilton House, and you've got one question also for Councillor Parsons. Sue.
Hello. I'm speaking on behalf of Gilton House Tenants Association. It's the second anniversary of the scaffolding going up for the renovation of Gilton House. We've been told it'd be finished in October, but few of us hold out any hope of that because we've been told over the years that it's going to be finished and it's not. The project has been dogged by delays and slow progress. There's been weeks on end when no work has been done. At the moment, the work seems to stop at 3 o'clock, whatever the weather, even though they're telling us they can't work if it's windy or raining. But even though it's been good, we're still stopping at 3 o'clock. We have been given lots of excuses for the slow progress, but few of them are very convincing. When they started removing the polystyrene cladding, it blew all over a wide area of Brislington. The new windows were fitted badly, so builders had to return to fix them. Internal decorations were done while the building work was started and then had to be redone because it was damaged during the work being done. And now it's not being done. It's being done again, so it's double the work. We have 2, sometimes 3 men fitting the new cladding to the building, 1 brick at a time, this size. Our lives have been disrupted for 2 years by cold, noise, dirt, nowhere outside space for anyone, limited parking for residents, even with mobility difficulties. The whole project must be way over budget. So we just don't know how much longer this is going to go on or what's going to happen.
So what's your question, sorry?
Will the council learn the lessons of Gilton House and ensure that the lives of residents in other blocks having cladding replaced are not as badly disrupted as ours have been?
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Thank you. And thanks again, Sue. I mean, again, I think I can only extend the sympathy of everyone in this chamber for the experiences that you've had. So replacing cladding of this nature is a new kind of project. I think this is not something that councils have had to deal with before, and so there's a lot of learning that needs to happen, so locally and nationally we're learning as we go. I think, particularly with the type of external cladding that Gilton House has. The fixed external wall insulation system. So the planned improvement service, which carries out this work, is continually trying to learn and improve from delivering these complex projects. And I'm assured by officers that they have learned significant lessons from the experience at Gilton House, particularly around the planning and the sequencing of these works, and that those will have a positive impact on future programmes. And I'd also say that the new Housing Committee is going to be keeping a close eye on this work and making sure that we're performing as well as we can.
Sue, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now move to public question 6, Helen Hughes on the East Bristol livable neighbourhood, and you've got 3 questions for Councillor Plowden. Is Helen here? Yeah. So Helen, your first question, if you can summarise it, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Can I just see who am I addressing?
Councillor Plowden?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. So my questions are about the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood pilot project. On the Livable Neighbourhoods page of the Bristol City Council website, it is stated, designing changes with the local community means they'll meet local needs. This is known as co-design. Community engagement and co-design is emphasised throughout the council literature on the East Bristol Livable Neighbourhood scheme. For example, in the Decision Pathway Report of April 2023. Special funding for exactly this purpose, the co-design, was even drawn from the European Union. Can the chair of the committee please say why, if the intention was to co-design and meet local needs, the funding from WECA was only available for measures such as blocking roads, putting in cameras known as bus gates, providing bicycle hangers and removing parking spaces, rather than for whatever creative ideas the residents themselves might have had to meet their own needs?
Thanks, Helen. We've been consulting on this since January 2022. There's been 3 rounds of consultation. After each round of consultation, local residents' views have been taken on board and changes have been made. Particularly in between, I think it was in July this year, July 2023, significant changes were made in response to some of the concerns expressed by residents. I think it's also worth saying that we're now going to proceed to a temporary scheme where nothing permanent will be done, but people can actually see and feel it for themselves. And that is exactly the point at which we will see more co-production and more co-design. And we will be having another round of engagement 6 months or so after that initial scheme. I've asked officers to provide a clear list of what success looks like so that we can be clear on the objective measures. And I think it's worth saying that when you go onto the map, which is part of the co-design process, it's not just about bus gates and other things, it's also about some positive things like parklets and trees and all the sorts of things that actually improves an area. So I think it's worth saying that there's more than just the list that you've given there that we've been consulting on, and we hope to introduce into the area.
Helen, do you have a supplementary question for your first question there?
Things like the parklets and the green areas, have you considered how these places might be used and abused by people on the streets at night time? It's quite well known that in cities those kind of places are not always used for the most healthy purposes. Have you considered that?
I think we have to look at the designs that we're going to put in place and make sure they're acceptable to the community. But actually, I'd like to turn that around and say that the evidence from London, where a lot of low traffic neighbourhoods have been put in place, is that actually crime goes down, antisocial behaviour goes down. You have more people on the streets and more natural surveillance. So it actually tends to sort of balance that out. And I think certainly there was a very good study of the Waltham Forest thing, which showed that crime and fear of crime had reduced as a result of the livable neighbourhood.
Helen, your second question, please.
Yes. Can the chair of the committee also state honestly that it was the council's intention to truly listen to the residents of the area and not simply to carry out the consultations you have described, which can come across as rather pro forma and heavily nudging people towards the council's own plans, which are very similar to plans in lots of other cities, rather than coming from the local people?
So as I said, the different stages of engagement haven't just been a pro forma online, they've been actually out there listening to the community. I was there listening to a Somali youth organisation just yesterday, and we'll be making changes to the questionnaire after the 6 months of temporary trial as a result. But I think that's exactly what the next step is to trial this, work with local people to see what's working and what isn't, and then redesign before we go permanent, rather than going straight to permanent. Exactly what you want. What you want is actually that we're going to trial this with temporary things and only install things permanently once we've gone through the next round of engagement and consultation. And I think it's worth saying that also there's a scheme of, there's a lot of cultural and active travel events that are planned to engage people, so it's not just that sort of tick box consultation.
Helen, do you have a supplementary question for your second question?
Can I ask my third one as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, then I'll move on to that.
Yep.
So there are many residents of Barton Hill, including people with disabilities who are here tonight, members of the Somali community, you've just mentioned that, and people running local businesses who are really upset and quite angry about the decision that has been taken to implement the project. Despite their objections, they don't feel they've been listened to, and they fear that their lives will become much more difficult once it's been implemented, if not intolerable. What will you do about this if it continues to be the case? Or will you be able to listen to these people now, not just when the scheme's been put into place as a trial?
I think we've already listened to local people, and there's a whole, like I say, there's been changes already made 3 times over. And one of the key changes is several exemptions to the bus gate. So emergency service vehicles, refuse vehicles, taxis, private hire vehicles, professional carers providing care in the community, and particularly those in receipt of the personal travel budget to assist with their mobility needs and those of the send children to get them home to school transport. So I think there's also additional measures already being delivered and further developed to support local businesses throughout the trial scheme to respond and explore different uses of the public space. And the engagement team is going to be providing journey planning advice and active travel grants as well throughout the scheme to try and help people change their behaviour. I think we've got to remember that I don't think do nothing is an option for transport in the city, and we've all got to collectively think about how we let the air out of the balloon rather than just assuming that we're going to squeeze the balloon and see it displaced elsewhere.
Helen, you've got one more supplementary if you wish.
I suppose then my question would go back to funding and be about why is the funding for these projects not linked at all into funding for better public transport, which would be a carrot rather than a stick to encourage the behaviour change that you're looking for?
I think that's a really fair comment, and we have been engaging with WECA to try and get some more funding to increase the frequency of the number 5 bus, but not been successful to date. That's something we'll keep doing. However, some of the bus gates that you're concerned about will actually help the number 5 bus go more quickly through the neighbourhood, and that I believe will mean, well, is objectively the case, that you'll need fewer buses then to serve the same route, because if they're more reliable and don't get caught in traffic congestion, then we should see improvements. We've got other measures coming forward to put more money into supporting bus services, and that's certainly, I would like to see these 2 things going hand in glove. I do accept that bus services is something that we're going to need to improve, and then they're not good enough, and we really want to see a step change in the way bus services work, and bus gates are part of that process.
Thank you very much, everyone. So unfortunately, we've now reached the end of public forum. I would like to inform members of the public that the adjournment for today's meeting is expected at 7:30, and I invite you to remain if you would like to hear the other agenda items. If not, please leave as quietly as possible. And thank you so much for coming. Thank you. So agenda item 7 is petitions notified by councillors, and I can report that there have been no councillor petitions received for this meeting. Agenda item 8 is the Bristol City Youth Council update. Now, this report is for noting. I'd like to call on the representatives of the Youth Council to present the report. So thank you very much, everyone. Go for it.
Hi everyone, we're the Bristol City Youth Council here. Ignore me, my voice is a bit off, I have a cold, so I might sound a bit weird. But hello everyone, hope you're all having a great evening. My name is Mary, I'm 17 years old, and I'm the chairperson of the Bristol City Youth Council, which I refer to as the BCYC, and I'll tell you some more about my role as well. The BCYC comprises of driven individuals that embody the spirit of activism and engagement. We advocate for the issues that matter most to young people, and the main aim of the BCYC is to represent the voices of young people in Bristol. Everyone, regardless of sexuality, gender, race, special educational needs and cultural background, deserves to be represented alongside the importance of having the voices of the young people of Bristol listened to. As a youth council, we work to elevate these voices to power. We are a body of 29 11 to 18-year-olds that were voted in by the youth of Bristol across schools and youth groups. Each member produced a campaign video about what issues they're passionate about and were voted in based off of these. In total, there were 8,956 votes casted by young people on the 9th of February 2024 this year, and once these were counted up, our official duties began. We then held a second vote internally for the leadership roles, and I'm happy to say that I was elected by the Youth Council to be chairperson. My role is to lead and facilitate meetings, ensuring they run efficiently and smoothly. Previously, we had 2 youth mayors. However, following the city's vote to no longer have a mayor, the Youth Council have decided that they also no longer have the role of the youth mayors, and we have replaced them with 3 community leads. This shows the focus of the Youth Council to represent the young people from the areas they come from, as well as Bristol as a whole. So, we have all been elected for around 6 months and have already achieved some amazing things and have much more to come, which will be described in more detail by my fellow youth councillors. We will be talking about the citywide campaign, community leads, area youth forums, the UKYP and media reps. I'll now hand over to Suryajit to tell you more about the citywide campaign.
Hello, my name is Suryajit and I am Deputy Chair of BCYC. In October 2023, BCYC held its annual Youth Voice Conference. At this conference, over 120 young people from across Bristol attended and were asked to vote for their top issue. The most important issue that came from this conference was knife crime and safety. This became the citywide campaign for the newly elected young people in February 2024. In April, we took part in a 2-day residential where we explored what safety means for young people, which allowed us to break down this campaign. I will now pass on to Binta and Ether to explain this.
Hi all, my name is Binta and I'm going to be explaining the citywide campaign subgroups. So within our citywide campaign, we have 4 subgroups that we've divided it into.
This one's still working.
Okay, it is on. Okay. Okay. Can you all hear me now? Cool. So, as already stated, my name is Binta, and I'm here to introduce our citywide campaign subgroups and explain them all to you. So, within our citywide campaign, we have 4 subgroups that we've divided them into. These are knife crime, prevention, education and welfare, police and crime, and safer environments and communities. We've divided our campaign into groups so that we can better focus on achieving our goals over our 2-year term. So, the first subgroup is knife crime. The topic of knife crime was chosen by the young people of Bristol, as many places, including Bristol, have been hit massively with the increase of knife-related violence. The knife crime subgroup aims to help raise awareness of this issue, working with decision makers and higher authorities. They hope to do this by holding events like sponsored silences to help raise money for the cause. The Prevention, Education and Welfare Group, or PEW for short, are focusing on how to educate young people on how to prevent and recognise unsafe situations. This would include working in schools to help find out what support there is for young people in regards to mental health and safety. This group is all about addressing the root causes of knife crime to ensure the well-being of all young people in Bristol. I'm now going to hand over to Ether to continue the explanation.
Hello, my name's Ether and I'll be continuing Vinta's point. The Safer Communities and Environment subgroup aims to achieve safer surroundings for all communities within so they feel they can express themselves freely and have an environment that doesn't make them feel unsafe or endangered. We want to work with the local young people and higher authorities that have the same passion for safety as we do in order to resolve the issues that we stand through through social media, contact in schools and local organisations, making sure that young people know that they are safe in their local areas at any time of day. Police and crime are a subgroup that aims to find out what the police are working on in relation to young people. We want to find out what is being done to improve relationships between the police and young people, building trust and making them feel safer around them. They also want to find out what is being done to improve the city's crime rate in relation to young people, making sure that young people feel safe and secure and never under any threat. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sam and I am one of the community leads. A community lead's role is to try and ensure that every young person across Bristol has a voice that is heard. A large number of voices are heard through schools, area youth forums and from people who speak to us as community leads. We hope to work with people in the communities, including senior practitioners, community organisations and local councillors to ensure that we are hearing as many voices as possible and focusing on the local communities within Bristol.
My name is Nina and I'm also community lead. We have area youth forums 3 times a year in each of the 3 areas, North, South and East Central. Many young people attend to share their views on the issues affecting young people of Bristol. This means we are, as youth councillors, are visible to young people and continuing to hear their voices throughout our term. At the end of each year, we have a Youth Voice Conference, which will be held on the 6th of November, which will be during National Youth Work Week. Some of the issues that came up from our latest area youth forums in June are knife crime and safety, specific areas where some young people feel unsafe, shoplifting and the effects on community, made to feel like criminals in certain shops, age discrimination, need for more lighting in certain areas, lack of activities and new provision, and racial profiling from security guards.
Hi, my name is Zara and I'm a United Kingdom Youth Parliament member. United Kingdom Youth Parliament means the elected members representing young people regionally and nationally. We're aiming to achieve a safer environment for locals as knife crime was voted leading issue in Bristol by young people. We have started this motion by carrying opinions and information to higher-ups that would take our voices nationally. However, in March 2024, we had the sad news that the British Youth Council, the organisation that runs UKYP, stopped its operations immediately.
Hi, my name's Neve, and as previously mentioned, there has been a lot of disruption surrounding the role of being a member of Youth Parliament. But in May 2024, we received the great news that the National Youth Agency will be taking on the responsibilities of the UKYP programme. We cannot wait to see what this looks like going forward, as well as our first South West Regional Youth Conference in July, National Youth Conference in October, and the House of Commons sitting next March. As we have just started our roles, we ask you as adult councillors to pledge your support. We ask you listen to us so we can effectively voice the ideas and opinions of the young people of Bristol. Thank you.
Now we will explain the role of media reps. So me and Ether were voted in as the media representative for the group. So our role is essentially to deal with the social media aspect of the Youth Council, working towards raising awareness of our existence, but also trying to interact with our constituents who are mostly young people. This is so that we can engage with as many young people as possible, which will hopefully amplify our positive effect in the community. We also update our fellow council members on current events of importance in the local area.
In the near future, we were hoping to spread awareness of the Youth Council via setting up an online page, either on Instagram or X, formerly known as Twitter, for the youth of Bristol and other organisations to know that we are here, we are active, and we are present in the community.
Our youth are crucial for societal progress, bringing fresh perspectives, innovation and energy, shaping the future with their unique potential. However, we are unable to make change alone. We ask for any support and assistance from adults to help ensure the success of all our campaigns. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that excellent presentation. When I look at you all, I think this country's got a great future. So thank you very much indeed for coming along today. Thank you. So we're now going to have a round of speakers about the Youth Council update. First, I'd like to call upon Councillor Fraser to speak on behalf of the Green Group. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and a very special thank you to the Chair Mary, Deputy Chair Surajit, Media Reps Binta and Aoife, Sam, Nina, Youth Parliament Member Zara, and Neve. And Binta, I have to say you handled the technical issues incredibly professionally, so an extra special well done to you. And I know how nerve-wracking it can be to make your maiden speech in this chamber, because it's my first time speaking in here too. So I think that makes me the 9th councillor to make their maiden speech during this meeting. So I want to congratulate and welcome you on behalf of us all. You should all be proud of yourselves for being here, and I hope that the whole council will make you feel very welcome and listened to. We know young people are so important in our city, and having your voice in discussions is vital to represent the diverse range of voices that make up our great city. And the presence of Youth Council has given me so much heart despite the sad closure of the British Youth Council earlier this year. I started my own political journey with the UK Youth Parliament as a youth councillor in my hometown, aged 11. I remember putting up posters around my secondary school with big pictures of my face saying 4 eyes, 1 vision. And I'm sure that you're all much more effective campaigners than I was back then. When I was a youth councillor, I was on a police and crime subgroup like the one some of you are on. We were scrutinising antisocial behaviour orders, or as we knew them, ASBOs at that time, from the local police. So I know that the work you're doing is hugely vital 20 years on from when I was a youth councillor. And like every member in this chamber, I want to make sure that our home is a place of collaboration and hope, not one where you feel silenced or ignored. Particularly around issues such as knife crime and safety, which I can see how deeply you've prioritised in your reports and your speeches tonight. I'm not surprised by this, and I want to reassure you that this is, of course, a huge concern for all of us in this chamber. It was the topic of the very first question in our member forum earlier this afternoon, which I thank my colleague, Councillor Malik, for raising. And as a councillor for Eastfield Wards, alongside my colleague, Councillor Francis, I hope that we can meet soon and work together for a better future. I want to pledge support towards achieving your goals, many of which I'm sure are very much in line with our own, and I hope that all members here will do so during the course of this evening as well. And I look forward to seeing some of you sitting on these benches as adult councillors in the not too distant future, or perhaps even in the House of Commons. Thank you, youth councillors. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
And from one 4 eyes to another, congratulations on your maiden speech. So let's move on to Councillor Martin to speak on behalf of the Labour Group, also I think a maiden speech.
It is indeed, yes. So thank you, Lord Mayor. And firstly, in case there are any doubts, despite my boyish looks, I'm not a member of the Bristol City Youth Council myself, and so I won't claim to take any credit for the terrific work that they're doing. It is great to hear that 9,000 young people across Bristol participated in the Bristol Youth Vote, electing members to the Youth Council. This level of engagement demonstrates the commitment of our youth to having their voices heard and making a positive impact to society. As said, one of the most pressing issues identified at last year's annual Youth Voice Conference was knife crime and safety. It is deeply tragic that we have seen so many young people in Bristol become either victims or perpetrators of knife crime in recent months and years. Bristol City Youth Council has responded with a comprehensive campaign, and these efforts are essential for helping towards creating a safe environment for young people. As a councillor representing Froome Vale, I'm acutely aware of the impact of knife crime in our community. Our ward lacks a dedicated youth centre or hub that can be so important for teenagers' development. This provision could be the difference between our young people having experiences that sets them up positively for life and those that set them up to fail. And this year, a teenager from my ward was involved in a stabbing incident and charged with attempted murder. This heartbreaking, avoidable event, one of many, underscores the urgent need for further investment in youth services, and I am committed to working with parents, community groups and policing to prevent further tragedies. Thank you, Bristol City Youth Council, for your ongoing efforts to raise awareness of this critical issue. I also take this moment to recognise the broader context of youth engagement in our society. Labour's manifesto pledge to give the vote to 16 and 17-year-olds for the first time in this country's history is a huge step forward. If 16-year-olds can work, if they can pay taxes, then they should also have the right to vote. In Scotland and Wales, where 16 to 17-year-olds already have the vote, this age group have been found to research election information from a broader range of sources than any other demographic. So it's time to stop patronising our young people and treat them with the respect they deserve. This historic change cannot come soon enough. I'm sure my fellow councillors from across the political spectrum will join in pledging our support to the Youth Council to achieve their aims. After all, our hard work is to create a better world for future generations. And as a former UN president said, young people are the world's engines of change, the architects of our future. Enjoy your upcoming conferences in the summer and autumn, and we look forward to hearing about your future successes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. And now I'd like to call upon Councillor Sarah Classic, who will not be making her maiden speech on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'm very past my maiden speech and have actually spoken to this report previously as well. So I'm pleased to speak today on the impressive progress and commendable achievements of Bristol City Youth Council. This report highlights not only the dedication and hard work of our young people, but also the significant strides that they have made in representing and advocating for young people across our city. It's heartening to see such a high number of our young people participating in the Bristol Youth Vote, and welcome to the elected passionate members of the Youth Council. This high level of engagement reflects the enthusiasm and commitment of our young citizens to have their voices heard and their concerns addressed. And I am pleased to see such a diverse council elected. The diversity strengthens your mandate to represent the voices of young people effectively. I want to commend the Youth Council on their proactive approach to addressing critical issues, most notably knife crime. The gravity of this issue in Bristol cannot be overstated, as it has such a profound and devastating impact on our communities. Knife crime not only endangers the lives of young people, but instills a pervasive sense of fear and insecurity. It disrupts our social fabric, leading to loss, trauma, and a diminished sense of community within our city. And I am pleased that you are recognising the urgency of this problem. The consensus is clear and resounding. Knife crime and safety needed to be a top priority, and this consensus underscores the lived realities and concerns of our young people who are directly affected by knife crime in our city. I wish the Youth Council luck in your comprehensive approach to tackle this issue, working collaboratively with local youth police decision makers, education departments and youth workers to raise awareness, promote preventative education and advocate for safer environments and support welfare initiatives. By addressing knife crime from multiple angles, I hope that you can be part of creating a safer, more secure Bristol where young people can thrive without fear. And as we reflect on the achievements of the Youth Council, it's essential to consider how we can all further empower our youth. In light of Thursday's elections, the Liberal Democrats also firmly believe that lowering the voting age to 16 in all UK elections is crucial for inclusive democracy. Including younger voices in the electoral process ensures that their perspective and needs are considered in policy making. It fosters a sense of responsibility and engagement from an early age, encouraging lifelong participation in the democratic process. I hope that with this new government, this signals this being a serious possibility for our 16 and 17-year-olds before the next general election. The Bristol City Youth Council has demonstrated remarkable dedication and effectiveness in representing and advocating for young people. Your achievements in increasing engagement and addressing critical issues and ensuring continuous representation are commendable. Thank you for taking the time to come speak to full council today, and good luck in your journey towards a safer, more inclusive and democratic future for young people in Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Michelat to speak on behalf of the Conservative group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm very happy to receive this report from the Bristol City Youth Council. Although this isn't my maiden speech, my first maiden speech 4 years ago was actually on this report. It's become a Tory group annual tradition.
You're the youngest.
I am.
Yeah.
Followed by Richard. The first thing to acknowledge here was the sad news of the demise earlier this year of the British Youth Council, which ran with the UK Youth Parliament. It is my understanding that this was due to financial difficulties, a challenge which confronts many charitable organisations. It might serve us well to remember the main reason why it is important to involve young people in political discourse. The demographic constitutes a significant part of the population. It is from the young that our future leaders are drawn. Young people can offer different and new perspectives on old problems. Increasing political participation helps build social cohesion by bridging the gaps between each generation. There are some issues which disproportionately affect the young people, such as education, knife crime, environmental pollution and climate change, so they should be involved in trying to find solutions to them. I am pleased, therefore, that the work of the UKYP will continue under the backing of another body, the National Youth Agency. I did previously wonder about how the Youth Council would evolve in response to the abandonment of the Executive Mayor. So the move to replace youth mayors with community leaders is, I think, a pragmatic and sensible one. This was a necessary change to better reflect our new governance structure. The continuing focus on tackling the modern scourge of knife crime is also important. This report states that the campaign has been broken down into 4 categories. It would be really useful if the next update brought to Council provides us with some detailed analysis and perhaps include a variety of international comparisons to better understand the cause of knife crime. Such an approach might help us develop more effective strategies in dealing with what sociologists term to be a moral panic. I also enjoy the contributions made in this chamber by the youth representatives. Their energy and enthusiasm for engaging in debate and a democratic process is refreshing. It's something from which we can all benefit and learn. With that, I thank the youth councillors and look forward to hearing from them again in the near future. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, young Henry, and that concludes agenda item 8. So we now move on to agenda item 9, which is the Corporate Parenting Strategy 2024 to 2029. And I'd like to call on Councillor Townsend to move the report as Chair of the Children and Young People Committee. And I believe, Councillor Townsend, you might have some special guests with you, if I haven't given the game away.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I have. So this shouldn't take the whole of my time, and I'll be handing over. Okay. So corporate parenting is the most important thing any local authority does. Every member of this chamber and every employee of this council has a legal responsibility towards such children and in supporting those who care for them, be that within foster families or residential homes. The duty extends far beyond that of children's services and education. Every directorate will need to be able to answer some sort of question that is about what are you doing to support children in care and their foster carers. With this as with all statutory agencies who share this responsibility alongside our partners, this council encourages will be that through the commissioning role or as part of this one city approach. The position of executive member for children's services is the only political position that is required by law. Such is the nationally recognised importance of caring for children as the most vulnerable group within our society. This is a reflection of the importance of our role for children in care, but also our much wider safeguarding role across all children in our city. Whilst the legislation largely ensures children in care are considered first within any state-funded setting, there remain loopholes. Some local institutions, almost unbelievably, choose to use this in order to justify their own positions when rejecting the needs of children in care and placing their own apparent vision above those we know and have known for decades need the most consideration and support in order to fulfil their lives. There is no defence of such positions, and there will be no place to hide while I occupy this statutory political role. Religious institutions that claim to be Christian yet reject the needs of children in care to advance their own position will get short shrift. I will not be quiet about these practices. These are choices made at local levels, and these choices need to change. As the Executive Member for Children's Services, it is for me to advocate for the needs of children in care, backed up by 69 other elected members across this chamber. The pushback will be strong, but it won't faze us. Equity feels like oppression only if you experience it from a position of ongoing privilege. And I hand over. Thank you.
Dear cooperative parents, Bristolians have a well-earned reputation for being friendly and welcoming. We need to do more for it to feel like that for us in care. Please help us in changing how people see the Bristol care system. We are children, and it is not our fault that we are in care, but society gives us the burden of feeling unwanted and unloved. We want to focus on the care we need. We want to ask us we need and be... Oh, we want... sorry. We want you to ask us what we need and be sincere and realistic in what you can deliver. We have been let down in life already, so please keep our promises. We are all different and don't want to be treated the same. We do not want to be a statistic, and we want the same chances as any other child who has a supportive, loving family. We need you to care about us as an individual people and to show that you care, not just because you are paid to do so. We would like to be heard and valued. Not only do we want to have a voice, but we want to hear your voice. Tell us what has improved. What will you do to make things better? Support us with things, big changes, help us deal with our emotions. Provide us with carers that provide healthy relationships. Introduce us to caring, loving people who will care for us and stay in our lives forever. With the cooperative parenting strategy, we are hopefully that you want to make a positive impact on our lives. We will look forward to you keeping up data on how you will achieve this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Horncham, would you like to second as Vice Chair?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to second this motion. Imagine living your life without the day-to-day support of loved ones or family, whatever shape that takes. As a child, making sure you have a warm coat and proper shoes in winter, making sure you're eating a healthy diet. Someone cares enough to talk to your teacher about the day-to-day issues you face at school, take you out, experience new things, or knows your interests to help you develop them. Imagine having 3 different mothers by the time age 7. Most of the support most of us take for granted. The statistics of childhood trauma is well documented. 25% of our prison population has experienced care in some point in their childhood. 33% of young people leaving care experienced homelessness in adulthood. Just 14% of care experienced people go to university, as opposed to 47% of the general population. The statistics are pretty grim in mental health and drug and alcohol addiction too. We know that childhood trauma affects your lifelong health. It is even shown to change your brain structure. However, we must guard against complacency that this is inevitable. Too many times in my career in working with children, I've seen children moved around the foster care system through no fault of their own. I've seen looked after children get extra support in school. No extra support in school, sorry. No one seems to know them or even listens to them, and so moved on or excluded. I've seen 10-year-olds excluded from play clubs rather than given the extra support they might need. I've been told by social workers when I raised underage drinking that was often the way. I was told by another child would never speak properly or do well at school. That child has just completed university. Not that going to university should be the only measure of success in life. None of these were in Bristol because the council has already had a policy of not underestimating children and young people. In my experience, I have found children resilient. Given the right understanding, love, support, they often overcome their difficulties and can flourish. We as citizens all have a responsibility to help where we can. As councillors, we sit on policy committees, each within their own area, that could support. Some of the issues can and will be dealt with on the Children and Young People's Committee, better work contracts for foster carers, working on recruitment and retention of social workers, better communication with schools. But homes and housing delivery could make sure a young person's first home is a good and supported experience. Public Health and Communities Committee could work on making sure that children are included in their parks, libraries and community facilities, as well as making sure they get their health appointments when they need them and in time. I challenge all the committees to put this group of our citizens on their agenda this year. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now have a round of speakers, starting with Councillor Gentry on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you. So, Margaret Thatcher famously said that there is no such thing as society, that there are individual men and women and there are families. And while I doubt that there are many here who would agree with that nasty piece of work about anything at all, I think more than anything she really missed the point that society, when done well, is or should be a kind of family. And that solidarity and comradeship push back against that horrible notion that we only need to look out for ourselves and those related to us by blood. And it means that we should consider everyone a sibling, a parent or a child. And this is rarely more relevant than when we are thinking about the children and young people in foster care who we are responsible for, the ones that we are corporate parents for. Being a parent is a really big job. I've just found that out, if I didn't know already. But, so being a corporate parent is an even bigger job. These are children who, through no fault of their own, have been dealt a really rough hand in life and they need the best. Research and experience tells us that in the vast majority of cases, the best place for children is with their birth family and they should only enter foster care as a last resort. But when it is necessary, then we need to make sure that they have the best experience possible. We have to ask ourselves, we are always encouraged to consider, would I feel this good enough for my own child? And if the answer is no, then we keep going. So for the children and young people in our city who are in foster care, they need and deserve far better than they often get. Moving between foster placements or being taken to live somewhere miles away from Bristol, from everyone you know, can be extremely scary and detrimental for a child's mental health and future prospects. So that's why having a dedicated corporate parenting strategy is so important, something that puts them at the heart of all that we do. It challenges us to be better. It pushes us to provide them with stability that they deserve, to stay in the same placement, near to the people they already know, to get the love and opportunities and hope for the future that all children deserve, but that care-experienced children and young people often miss out on. And just writing this strategy and publishing it, it looks great, but that's not enough. It needs to be at the heart of all we do, not just the Children and Young People's Committee, and we need to hold ourselves accountable. So we're going to get annual updates as to how successful we're being at meeting our targets. Obviously, additional funding from central government will be crucial to achieving the outcomes our children deserve. And all eyes are now on Westminster to see if Labour deliver the widespread societal change they've promised, much of which can only be achieved by improving local government finance. This additional funding could be provided by, say, a wealth tax, and I know we will talk more about austerity later in the meeting. But making the most well-off in society pay their share to support those who need it, to support our children, from each according to their ability to each according to their need, supporting everyone in the family that is our society. So I'm really pleased we have this strategy. We need to do better for our children in care, and I look forward to us all working hard to ensure a better outcome for these children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Councillor Collard to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Okay, first of all, I'm really proud to... Oh, thank you, Lord Mayor, by the way. First of all, I'm really proud of the fact that I'm actually here representing corporate parenting, because obviously it's really important to me. I'd like to thank the young person who came here today to share their story. I think it's really important, and it just shows that actually we are here, we are listening, and if we get voices coming towards us that are sharing their stories, we need to be listening. As a corporate parent, I think that is really important. One of the first things on my agenda as a new councillor was actually a meeting of the corporate parenting. This is very fitting, as it's probably the most important responsibility we all have. There are actually 769 children in care under Bristol City Council. We all need to play our part to ensure that every single one of them gets the best start in life. As a newly elected councillor, I am still new to the corporating world, but I also know that we have a dedicated team of council staff working hard to get the best for Bristol's children. So I want to thank everybody for their work with regards to corporate parenting. The statistics in the report are broadly okay. 3/4 of 17 to 21-year-olds are in learning or work, and 93 of them are in suitable accommodation. Personally, I won't be happy until those figures are 100%, but I also appreciate it's not always possible. But one statistic stands out for me, and that 44% of children in care actually live outside of Bristol. One is even in the Republic of Ireland. And I feel that this clearly needs to be addressed. Not only is it expensive, but it's also not in the best interest of the children. The main way we can address this is by building local capacity. In One Lockleys, one of Gorham Homes' projects, some of these homes will actually be for children in care. I really hope this is something that Gorham can replicate in other developments. It is a common sense solution to one of the council's challenges. We should be using council land to tackle council's challenges. I think everybody would agree with that. We also need to work with partners to improve the standard of care for children in care. I want to see us working better with other organisations, especially when it comes to young children with complex needs. I think communication between the organisations across the board should all be working together to make sure that children are being looked after in every aspect of their life. We also, for example, if someone is offered a caring role for children with complex needs through the job centre, it needs to be clearly communicated with the applicant about what the role entails, and always there must be proper training to be given. Being a corporate parent highlights the importance of One City work, so many partner organisations are involved in this. The last Labour administration...
Councillor Collar, could you wrap it up now, please? Thank you.
Sorry?
Oh, you can finish your sentence, but yeah, you're over time.
Okay. So including those in care have their rights upheld. It wasn't just the council who signed this, but our partners too. So we continue to build on that.
Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt. So now, Councillor Brown on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I've recently returned to being on the corporate parenting panel after a year of doing it when I was first elected, and of all the things I've done in this council, it's one of the most enjoyable and rewarding of committees to be on. However, that's not to say there's not challenges, and the strategy does outline those. Some of the key numbers and facts that are in the strategy is that the current number of children in care is up since the last strategy was published and its refresh in 2020. The rate of children in care exceeds the national average in England. The proportion outside Bristol is up to 44%, including 20% over 20 miles away. And as we've already heard, one of those is in Ireland. We have a shortage of places in children's homes and still have children in unregistered homes, and we're short of foster parents. And there was a recent no assurance report presented to audit with regard to the management of those transitioning between child and adult services. So there are lots of challenges, and those are just some of them. And of course, children's services as a whole are hugely financially challenged. It's one of the key drivers of financial pressures on local authorities, not just our own, but across the country. And I'm sure that will be picked up again in the debate later. But the strategy starts with a plea from our care experienced children and young people, and we heard it read out by a young person who spoke to us, and that is a plea to change the way that people see the Bristol care system. And while the new strategy is short on measurements against the 8 priorities in the previous strategy, so we've not really got a feel for how the previous strategy played out, its new priorities, and there's 6 of those, are much clearer about what the measures of success will be. And I look forward to future reports referencing those measures and actually seeing performance hopefully improve over time. In addition, they make absolutely clear that this is not just about the council as a silo. It will take many agencies working together to make things happen, and we councillors play a part in that too. We should all be finding ways to support the work of the corporate parenting team, to advocate for the corporate parenting role of the council, including encouraging people to take up fostering, and to find ways in which our committees can support the work as well. Another thing I welcome is a commitment to explore the possibility of inclusion of care experience as a locally protected characteristic. It's something I've tried to bring a motion to this council before on, but it was not eligible. And it's something that was in my in my national party's manifesto at the election, and I would be happy to help make that happen. So on behalf of this group, on behalf of my group, I welcome
Last sentence, please, Councillor Brown.
And look forward to hearing positive updates as it gets bedded in. Thank you.
And finally, Councillor Galandris, on behalf of the Conservative group, please.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'd like to start by echoing the comments of previous speakers in thanking all the many people involved in looking after our children in care and care leavers, council officers who are up in the public gallery, foster parents, and there are some here in the chamber, and I'd encourage more people to apply, teachers, health workers, and numerous other agencies. Having spent many years previously on the corporate parenting panel, I've always been humbled by the amazing dedication of so many people involved in this vital area. As others have rightly pointed out, we as councillors are all corporate parents. Bristol's children in care and care leavers are our direct responsibility. No ifs, no buts. Just as we want the best for our own children, godchildren, nieces and nephews, so too we must be equally ambitious and aspirational for our corporate children. If something wouldn't be good enough for our own children, then it's not good enough for our children in care. It was a real privilege to hear directly today from one of our children, one of our corporate children. Thank you very much for coming today. I particularly like your quote, and it is actually in the report if people wanted to revisit it on page 22. We do not want to be a statistic, and we want the same chance as any other child who has a supportive, loving family. There's one issue I would like to highlight in the report, and it relates to care leavers. On page 28, the report shows that 64% of care leavers are in education, employment or training. That is actually a good figure when benchmarked with peer authorities, but it still means that 36%, more than 1 in 3 care leavers, is not in employment or education or training. Is that good enough, or should we be doing more as corporate parents? In summary, I welcome the report, pay tribute to all those involved in this vital work, and may also take this opportunity to wish Councillor Christine Townsend opposite every success in her new role as chair of the corporate parenting panel. I know she'll be a passionate advocate for our corporate children, and so should we all. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Galandris. Yes, I agree. A wonderful report. Very colourful. I wish all reports would be as colourful as this one. So thank you very much. So the recommendation is shown on the screen and is on the report in your agenda pack. We're going to have an aye nay vote. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? So the recommendation is approved. Thank you. That concludes agenda item 9. We'll now move on to agenda item 10, Equity and Inclusion Annual Report. This report is for noting, and I'd like to ask Councillor Tony Dyer to move the report as Chair of the Strategy and Resources Committee. Tony.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Equity and Inclusion Annual Progress Report is a summary of our equalities work during the period April 2023 to April 2024. There are 5 key overarching areas, and I'm going to pick out a couple of points from each of them. Under leadership, we have re-established our equities and inclusion governance structure with an embedded tier approach so that support for each of the directorates can be tailored. And several of our senior leaders represent the Council on multiple working groups in partnership with other equality organisations that aim to tackle city-wide inequalities and challenges. Under diverse workforce, our workforce strategy is currently being refreshed to reflect our organisation will prioritise resources to develop being an employer of choice. And a key piece of work has been a setup of a supporting disabled colleagues project board with the aim of updating our reasonable adjustments policy and processes. Under Councillor Services, we report twice early on service-led equality action plans. The number of equality impact assessments has continued to rise, with 366 completed throughout the annual year, with an additional 52 completed by the budget setting process. Under partnerships, our partnerships objectives have demonstrated the strongest growth across all the 5 objectives. And multiple events were held throughout the year for racially minoritised communities, including our annual conference and a recruitment event attended by city partners with excellent feedback. Under the theme of communities, the Bristol Impact Fund and Community Resilience Fund continue to support community-led projects across the city. In November 2023, we published a report which provided an update on our approach to supporting citizens and communities impacted by the cost of living crisis, and that still continues to have impacts today. In summary, this report has provided the opportunity for all of us to examine areas of challenge by monitoring and evaluating progress on our actions. We want to ensure poverty does not hold people back in our city. We cannot be considered a successful city whilst not everyone is able to share in our success. Until we do that, we cannot be a successful city. Thank you. I move the report.
Thank you. So now I have a round of speakers, starting with Councillor Mohammed for the Green Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm happy today to speak to the Equality and Inclusion Annual Progress Report for 22-23, and I thank officers for their work. It's essential to recognize the strides we have made and the work that lies ahead. This report, prepared in compliance with the Equality Act 2010, highlights the Council commitment to advancing equality and fostering inclusivity within our community. Over the past year, we focused on several key areas and have made significant progress in tackling inequalities and eliminating discrimination. Initiatives such as the Disabled Colleagues Project Board have been launched to ensure that all individuals have equal opportunities to thrive. One of our major achievements includes the development of the Equity and Inclusion Strategic Framework for 2023-2027. This framework outlines our future vision and strategy for tackling equality issues comprehensively. It aims to build on the success of the previous policy, ensuring that our approach remains robust and responsive to the changing needs of our community. The report also details our adherence to the public sector equality duty, emphasizing our goals to eliminate unlawful discrimination, advance equality of the opportunity, and foster good relations between people who share protected characteristics and those who do not. While we celebrate the achievements, we must acknowledge that the journey towards full equality and inclusion is ongoing. There is still areas that require our attention and improvement, as noted in the report, such as improving the quality of some equality impact assessments and increasing reporting from service areas on their equality action plans. I'm glad to see the suggestion to use the senior leadership governance structure to support increased monitoring and evaluation of the Council's actions to embed equity and inclusion into everything that we do. Let us continue to work guided by the principles of equity and inclusion to create a city where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Councillor Self to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. May I start by saying to you, Lord Mayor, that it was a pleasure to join you for the raising of the Progress Pride flag on College Green at the beginning of June. Bristol Labour and myself wish all LGBT plus people happy Bristol Pride this Saturday, and let's hope the sun shines. As a new member with a proud history of supporting equity and inclusion, I welcome this report and the progress that's being made. As the 2021 census showed, this is a diverse city made up of people from many different backgrounds and experiences. It is important that its council and elected members work in the best interest of everybody, including those that are disadvantaged, oppressed and marginalised. And I'm proud of the diversity in the city. Indeed, if this place is a cacophony of woke, then that's an accolade I embrace. As I look around this chamber, I find it pleasing that we have elected members from many different backgrounds across all parties. It is important that this chamber represents the population of the city and looks outward to its citizens. On leadership, I hope the new Chief Executive embraces this report and emphasises its importance to a senior leadership team. I can see a lot of good progress in this section, but I note a recent press article where disabled employees felt they were sidelined by middle management. My own experience is that even when senior leaders embrace equity and inclusion, it is often middle managers that are left wanting, and it's up to the senior leadership team to reach out to them. I noticed the report mentions serious youth violence as a case study, and we've heard that today in this chamber. This is undoubtedly an issue of our time and requires all of us to work together to find solutions. I know this is a priority for this and let's hope that we continue to work on that. I welcome the workforce diversity initiatives and congratulate the team with progress in this area. On frameworks, I see good progress but not outstanding. I would encourage the Council to strive to be the very best. On policies, I see good things. Of course, I welcome the trans inclusion and gender identity work policy because trans people can find it exceptionally hard to find good, well-paid jobs. Engagement in the staff survey has gone down significantly and falls well below what I have seen elsewhere, although the results are generally positive. On council services, I see many positive things in this report, although I note that several indices are in the lower part of the score. The partnerships section highlights the good work going on across the city with trends heading mostly in the right direction. And it's good to see the Bristol Equality Charter gaining more signatures. The Equality Commissions continue to do good work and highlight important issues. On communities, Labour councillors represent some of the most deprived wards in the city, and I note that only 4 out of 10 of people in these areas feel they belong to their community. I recognise the great work done by organisations like the Southmead Development Trust. I hope the Council supports these wards by positive action and support. So thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'll finish by saying this is a positive report, and if you have space in your diary, please feel free to join me at the Southmead Festival this Saturday.
Thank you very much, Councillor Self, and I will be actually leading the parade for Pride on Saturday morning. So if I see you there, I'll say hello. Thank you very much. So now we have Councillor Coombs to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you. Now, when I was a trainee architect, one of my first jobs was to design a bathroom. I should probably mention it was an all-gender bathroom, but that's because it was a private house. It was quite common back then. So I was quite proud of my piece of work. I'd considered the aesthetics of it, the structural characteristics, and of course the plumbing. I was quite into my technical business. Building regs is very hot on plumbing, drainage, lengths and falls, and so I handed it over to the architect that I was working with, and she looked at it and said, well, that's pretty good, but you know, if you put the toilet next to the bath, then you can sit on the toilet lid when you're bathing a child. And I had no idea. I was 20. I'd never bathed a child. That's an example of how a different perspective results in a better outcome. And by considering these diverse perspectives, by making sure that people are valued in our city, our society, and our council, we get a better outcome as an organisation and as a people. So that's why I think this equity and diversity policy shows that equity and inclusion policy shows that this is taken seriously. That's why we've got to take it seriously. But the question that we should then ask ourselves in receiving this annual report is it working? And I think the report is ambiguous on this. It is actually, I would say, too early to say. We've only got 2 data points on the metrics. We've got the numbers from last year. We've got the numbers for this year. So I would ask that for next year's report, as I'm sure is coming, we'll have 3 data points to work from. It would be useful to go back even further in time so that we can identify a proper trend line. It would help to have a commentary on each of those metrics that we are assessing to say whether the trend is positive or negative and why we think that that is, and what are the plans that the Council has to address any areas which are under target. Thanks.
Thank you. And now Councillor Hucker to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group.
My Lord Mayor, I'm pleased to be able to say a few words on this item. Everyone in this chamber recognises that equality and inclusion are essential components of a thriving and harmonious society. Indeed, we have all accepted the duty to promote these key objectives as part of the Bristol Equality Charter. This, it may be recalled, sets out the broad principles and actions which the Council has committed itself to uphold: the promotion of diversity, tackling discrimination, and thereby bringing about a much fairer city. Who can not want everyone to feel that they have an opportunity to maximise their talents, for individuals to succeed and prosper? However, it is not enough to make grandiose statements. To avoid our words being mere platitudes, in reality, practical steps have to be taken to deliver these virtues. So with that in mind, I welcome this snapshot of the strides which have been taken in support of the Equality and Inclusion Strategic Framework, which was passed by Council just last year. I will make a few observations here. With regard to Equality Objective 2, creating a diverse and inclusive workforce which reflects our communities, I note progress is being made through various initiatives. Most recently, the Council is reviewing its policies on reasonable adjustments to better capture the talents of more disabled people. This is undeniably a good thing. On the staff surveys, this broadly indicates a high satisfaction rating across the organisation for employees, with differing protected characteristics around personal perceptions of their working environment and fair treatment. However, it is concerning that an admittedly small group of respondents, ranging from 2 to 5%, still report a totally negative view of BCC as an employer. I really think more work needs to be done to drill down into the circumstances and reasons behind this data set. The report also acknowledges there is a need to improve reporting on equality action plans. I'm confident senior managers will address this failing. The mention of Project Rainbow was particularly interesting. This records the steps taken to include young people with SEND and their families in designing a purpose-built educational centre. This represents a very positive development and one which builds upon the good news around SEND provision with the recent safety valve funding arrangement reached earlier this year. My Lord Mayor, whilst this annual progress report does not purport to provide us with all the answers to the enormous challenges in seeking to address economic and social disparities, it does at least show that we are beginning to ask all the right questions.
Thank you very much. And that report is for noting, so that concludes agenda item 10. There will now be an adjournment. Refreshments for councillors are in rooms along the corridor, and the conference hall is also available. We normally have 20 minutes, but I'm feeling generous. So let's get back here at 8 p.m. sharp, please, for the motions. Thank you. Firstly, we estimate that to hear both motions, it will take us up to 9 o'clock, which is 10 minutes over our allotted time. So are members happy if we go on until 9 o'clock so we can hear both motions? I think that's a majority in favour of extending by 10 minutes. So we'll try and get through both motions. If you can keep your speeches short and sweet, that will really be helpful. So thank you very much. Okay, so agenda item 11, golden motion, ending local government austerity and investing in local public services. The motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. The motion has been altered, which means that all groups have agreed to it being changed from its original wording, and the altered motion was published today as a supplement to the agenda. I'd like to ask Councillor Rob Breyer of the Green Group to move the motion. Rob.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Congratulations to the Labour Party for securing the seats they needed to form a new UK government. It is good to have a fresh start after 14 chaotic and damaging years of Conservative government, and I hope that there will be a successful government striving for social, economic and environmental justice and transforming the UK for the better. As Greens, we thought it was important to begin this new chapter in the life of both Bristol and the UK with a constructive challenge to Labour, their national economic plans, and give positive action to push the new government to go further than their stated manifesto commitments, which we feel will not sufficiently deliver the improved public services we so desperately need in Bristol. Every conversation we have right now about the Council's work is suffused with the difficulties of continuing to operate specific public services in Bristol. This motion attempts to draw together our collective political voice towards the UK government because we must make clear to them the scale of the challenge we face here. It is our duty to local residents and a response to what austerity has done to our communities. Nationally, the nightmare of austerity has contributed to 335,000 excess deaths, a fall in life expectancy and a real terms average income cut of £11,000. The focus of this motion is on adult social care transformation and the ethical care charter as the most pressing aspects of local government finance. But there are, of course, so many areas that need additional resourcing to reverse this pattern. Although the Labour manifesto does use the line, "there will be no return to austerity," I must express scepticism about this claim as there has been insufficient detail given as to how exactly Labour will increase funding to local government rather than simply maintain the stagnant status quo. It is welcome that the Labour manifesto contained a commitment to give councils multi-year funding settlements and end wasteful competitive bidding, but it is unclear how this is funded. We of course agree on the principle and include it in our asks in the motion to show our common ground, because it's good when we agree and to say it out loud. Although there are some other welcome investments in the manifesto, for example, in my area, the appointment of 300 new planning officers, there is no firm commitment to the sea change needed in local government investment. The Greens argued during the campaign, and our MPs will continue to argue for in Parliament, that we also need to borrow to invest. There's a common misconception that a national budget is like a household budget, when really, when you control your own currency like the UK does, you have a lot more leeway than that. We reject the self-imposed straitjacket of conventional fiscal rules that the Labour Party is committed to follow. We want to see public investment through taxing wealth fairly and taxing investment income at the same rate as earned income. This would mean £28.5 billion raised in taxes on personal income and wealth in 2026, rising to £71.9 billion by 2029. This is how you pay for good public services, and it's the detail that the Labour manifesto sadly lacked. The manifesto says that Labour will strike a balance between prioritising investment and the urgent need to rebuild our public finances, and yet ignores the taxation of wealth completely as a measure to improve both of these areas at the same time. So thank you for listening to this economic challenge, and I urge you to support this motion to build our collective voice for deeper and more ambitious investment into local government in our communities. Thank you.
Councillor Francis, a second, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Okay, so I stand in support of our motion. Now, I have a speech here, but I'm not going to actually read it. And the reason why I'm not going to read it is because on Thursday, the 4th of July, last week, it's been a long time, we had a massive swing in the voting, which resulted in a collapse of the then current system. We saw a massive swing towards Labour, and most people, especially within my ward, were in a dilemma because they want so much to be able to see a difference across the UK, and they voted accordingly, and that was the right thing for them to do. We've secured 4 exceptional MPs across the country that will help to emphasise the values that we stand for. So why did I tear up my speech? Well, I tore my speech up because this is a really, really simple thing that we're trying to do within the Green Group. We want to unify the chamber with all members, accepting that we are in a major crisis. Austerity has strangled us all, almost no matter what your income is. The price of everything on our shelves is through the roof that none of us can hardly afford to do the basics. Yeah? So this is not just an issue for those people out there, it affects us all. However, when I consider adult social care, the young people that we look after in our, we're corporate parents and we have young people in the system that will one day transition to adult social care. That's my remit. I'm the proudest person alive, I think, sometimes when I think about being the chair of adult social care. But the challenges that we face just cannot be put down on a piece of paper because it's deeper than that. If we do not tackle the inequalities within the system that we all have to exist around how we fund adult social care, the most vulnerable people in society will continue to fail. We saw what the previous government was trying to do around cutting benefits for people with severe mental health conditions or even milder mental health conditions, that talking about changing the way that PIP is delivered. And that's coming from a position that if you're not in the system, you don't understand how it works. So as a long-standing social worker, I'm proud to be here, asking the chamber to support the overall principle of lowering austerity, raising the adult social care budget alongside children's services budget, and let's work together to deliver.
Thank you. So there has been an amendment from the Labour Group which has been published online as a supplement earlier this afternoon. I'd like to ask Councillor Renard of the Labour Group to move the amendment, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Moving this amendment to give the motion both a bit of meat and also a pinch of salt. And I do appreciate councillors haven't had long to read this amendment owing to the general election. We met yesterday evening and have circulated it as soon as possible. We're always, of course, happy to ask government, whatever its colour, for more funding for the services we run, and we have done so before, joining calls from across local government to ensure the continuation of the Household Support Fund, a lifeline for so many. And I assume Leader of the Council and Green Party Liberal Democrat committee chairs will be writing to the government with their policy priorities anyway. We're here to stand up for our residents, and we know there's so many aspects of the public realm that need more support. So we will be voting for this motion regardless of whether this amendment passes. But let's be clear though, there is no magic wand in the drawers of 10 or 11 Downing Street that can fix the problems facing local government with a swish of a wrist. Everyone here will appreciate, whether they admit it to themselves or not, that the last 14 years a failed Tory government has run our country into the ground. Fixing a mess as big as this will take time. Regardless, we wanted to add some things to the motion. And it's why we've amended it to put something tangible in there, a commitment to keep the council tax reduction scheme in full. And there were discussions about bringing policy options on cutting it to the July Strategy and Resources meeting. And from the get-go, I made it clear that the Labour Group would not support any changes to it. Yes, the last administration consulted on options, but we don't need to go through that again to work out that cutting it during a cost of living crisis would be the wrong move. And I'm glad the Green Party colleagues across the chamber agree. Let's put mind at ease and commit today to have it as a red line in any budget discussions. We also need to be clear that if we want more funding for public services, we need to focus on inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Getting the economy to grow by 1% or 2% of GDP could mean tens of billions more to spend on public services, and that's surely something that we all want. And once the economy grows, additional fiscal headroom, as they call it, should go back into improving our country's crumbling public services. The last Labour government got NHS waiting times down to record lows, made huge strides in tackling child poverty and funded local government properly. None of that would have been possible without sustaining decent levels of economic growth. So I hope councillors back this amendment and then back the original motion. Thank you.
Councillor Logan will now second the amendment.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. And thank you for the party opposite for such a ringing endorsement of government policy. An odd thing to do, given all the things that this council has in charge of, a commendable thing. Thank you for that time. I don't think there is anyone in this chamber or in this building, officer or in the public gallery, who will disagree with that social care is important, or indeed that social care is a critical part of making this city a functioning and cohesive community, or that the people who deliver it needs to be treated well. The ethical care standard is a critical thing. I imagine that's why the previous administration signed up to it in, I think, 2021, but it's good news that it's continuing and we should make more of it. There is nothing more important than that. As from a personal point of view, I will actually be helping a member of my family move into a care home for the first time tomorrow, and there is nothing more important than vulnerable people are supported by people who want to be there and who are trusted to be there and who feel that their role is respected. The national government's policy for a national care service will promote that. Something else that this motion celebrates is multi-year funding settlements, I think, which all members, I imagine, will lead to better decision making, because better decision making helps in this area, because to govern is to decide. And we have shown in the last 72 hours that decisions can be made by an enthusiastic and decisive administration that wants to do that. So whether that's about wind power or housing growth or NHS workforce. So it's important that those things happen. Our amendment seeks to provide some principles about how we will make difficult decisions, and why, in particular, the council tax reduction scheme should remain as a critical part of our response to the cost of living crisis. That's the advice that our amendment gives, and that's why you should vote for it. But thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now hear from speakers on the amendment. So firstly, Councillor Stone on behalf of the Green Group.
Hello, and thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Okay, to be quite frank, I think you were lucky that we extended this meeting to hear the amazing silver motion that you were going to bring to council, because bringing this amendment we may not have done. And seriously, you've really kind of slightly annoyed me actually, and I don't really want to bring down the mood of this. But yet again, you made an amendment, you brought it to the council really, really late on, okay? And this is not the first time that the Labour Party has done this, and I think you should be quite ashamed of yourself, to be honest with you. Because I'll tell you what, your silver motion, okay, violence against women and girls, is something that we deeply need to hear, and therefore we have extended it. But to be honest, again, quite frankly, thank goodness we did vote to extend it, so we can hear that. Seriously, if you want us to give your amendments more respect, okay, yeah, you need to act with more generosity and work with the Chamber and not against it. Okay, remember, I have to remind you, we published this motion 2 weeks ago. You had plenty of time to formulate amendments and bring it to us so we could consider those amendments and possibly even incorporate them into an altered motion. However, bleating on about the new Labour government is quite frankly nauseating. It is actually really self-serving. It sounds like you've never heard the slogan, country first, party second, or politics begins about public service. I'm sure you have, but I don't think, to be honest, you have. As I said, this motion this motion was never meant to be party political. It was meant to be about the fact that we are trying to improve the vital services for the most vulnerable citizens in our society, which I'm sure, and I know you know, and I know you agree on it, because you've just said you're going to vote for our motion anyway if we were to not vote your amendments through. Okay? It's ironic also, right? It's ironic that you've highlighted the council tax reduction scheme, the one that your party wanted to reduce the discounts from 100% on several occasions over your administration, the same one that we have been trying to keep in place for many of those years. Left to your party, that particular scheme, I think, would be virtually non-existent by now. Right, so we will not be supporting these amendments, but hopefully you will support the original motion, which I know you will, because it puts the people of Bristol first. Thank you.
Councillor Rippington, I'm not sure we have an expression for unparliamentary language, but thank you.
I apologise unreservedly for that language.
So now, can we hear from Councillor Joss Clark on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group?
Sorry, you caught me. I was so stunned by one of my colleagues' words just then that it completely put me off. I haven't written any notes because this came to us so late. A lot of what you just said, I will repeat, actually. I think it's a great shame that you didn't give us the courtesy of giving us this amendment earlier in the day, or even yesterday, or even the end of last week, because it actually would have been courteous. We could have actually looked at it, and maybe the parties here would have been felt more favourably towards the amendments. What I feel about the amendment that you've put is my immediate thought was crowing. It feels a little bit like you're just I can't think of the right word really, by being polite, and that's unusual for me, isn't it?
Just say what Councillor Rippington said.
No, I'm not going to say that. No, I'm not going to say that. But it just seems a shame that you have to politicise this motion, because it actually is not terribly political. And all you've done is you've just injected the political into it, and it just seemed a real shame, actually. And we can all crow about all our successes, or most of us can crow about our successes on Thursday night, sorry. But we could. But we could, we can all do it, and I'm sure, you know, and it's a kind of a bit of a cheap thing, really, and it doesn't actually add anything to this motion, and the amendment really doesn't add anything to the motion at all. So you can tell where we're all going, and I think I agree with you, Councillor Stone, that actually they're lucky that people didn't decide to vote against the silver motion, and it's a good quality silver motion, and it should be heard. But I think the Chamber feel that the way you've treated us today is not being courteous, and it's left a little bit of a bad taste. And I think the other thing is, with, you know, in terms of crowing and sort of saying how fabulous the Labour Party are, we just received a very strong statement about the state of the housing department in this city, and there is not a lot to crow about. And I just look at what you've written, and I read that report, and I've read that Savile report the other day, and it is not make good reading, and it is on your watch. It is definitely on your watch. We are councillors, but a lot of this stuff was hidden from us. And I just feel that your amendment has really not strengthened your case. So, as you can tell, we will not be voting for your amendment. Sorry. Thank you.
Councillor Weston on behalf of the Conservative Group.
Thank you. I'm delighted this is a non-political motion. I hadn't noticed that, I must say. It'll be no shock to anyone. And don't worry, Councillor Stone, I will bring the mood down. It's okay, I've got it. It'll be no surprise that we're not supporting the amendment. However, I will make one positive comment to it, actually, but you wait for that. It'll be surprising for you all. But that's actually because we didn't agree with the original motion either. So you make several assumptions in your thing, which actually, if you look at the fact-checking services, you have to take with a slight pinch of salt on it. They all say that you're conflating causation and everything else. So the various items you talk about, 11,000 worse off, when you talk about the excess deaths and all the rest of it, actually, if you dig into that, you can't blame it entirely on austerity. You can't, and they say you can't. So, but you have done in yours, but I'm glad it's non-political. So I don't want to grandstand on that. The one thing I also would add is, and we say this every time, is our budgets have been cut since austerity started. It started under Labour, but since we carried it on, and by the way, you were there for the first 5 years, but never mind on that one. We can rewrite history at will, it would appear, and I think the Labour Party are going to be doing that over the housing policy shortly. So when it comes to austerity, the Labour Party were saying they would cut the deficit in half in 4 years. The coalition cut it by a third in 4 years. Which bit did we cut or not cut that you would have done? What would you have done differently? You do forget that each and every time. So we're going to vote against it for the variety. You'll hear me all talk about it later on. But there is one thing where Councillor Reynard is right. Sorry, give me a moment. I'm okay, okay. The amendment talks about councils with specific needs. And he is absolutely right on this, and any letter to the government should put that in. What I mean by this is Bristol has a children's hospital. So we naturally have families who have seriously ill children. Seriously ill children have various complications, often in SEND. So the wraparound care services we have to put around those families that enter our city is an acute stretch of our finances, and we quite rightly should support them. But it does mean a specific challenge Bristol has that other cities might not. So when you do talk about the specific challenges that the city faces, that is one that should be in any letter to government, because that is not quite unique to Bristol, but it is certainly a driver in some of our SEND spend, some of our care service spend. So we're not going to support the Labour Party political broadcast. It's nearly a week late, but never mind. And we're also not going to support the amendment either. But on that one issue, Councillor Reynard might have a point. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Councillor Reynard, would you like to respond as mover of the amendment? Councillor Reynard? No. Councillor Breyer, would you like to respond as mover of the original motion?
I'm going to reserve my remarks at this stage, if that's all right.
Thank you. So we now move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Please ensure you're in your allocated seats so that your vote is recorded accurately. Thank you. Councillor Paul. Exciting. Now remember, you are voting on the amendment and the vote will open for 15 seconds. Please vote now.
Still getting worse. It's just easy. It's really quite small. It's haven't reached the edges yet. God, what's this yellow patch in the middle of the screen? It's a problem with the legs.
Okay, so for the amendment, 19 for, 45 against, there's no abstentions, so the amendment was unsuccessful. So we will now hear from speakers on the unamended motion, and you can reserve your remarks if you wish, but I'd like to call on Councillor Zoe Peat to speak on behalf of the Labour Group.
The last 14 years of Conservative rule has left councils across the country without the necessary funding for our public services. Their failures need more than just an easy fix, and it will take time to repair the damage that the Conservative Party have done. However, today is a new day, and our newly appointed Labour government is committed to multi-year funding, ending competitive bidding, strengthening devolution to give councils more power to provide for their citizens. In fact, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has already begun the path to implementing this, as today he met with all the regional mayors, without a doubt, to discuss the prospects of devolution. The last 4 years have been reminiscent of some other pivotal moments in British history, such as those that followed the devastation of the Second World War, where the United Kingdom unapologetically demanded investment and demanded a Labour government. A government which provided a mass council house building programme and created the NHS. Then, after a decade of Thatcherism, the UK once again demanded change. And Labour delivered by bringing NHS waiting lists to a record low, tackling child poverty and introducing the minimum wage. And now, after 14 years of austerity, a referendum that has divided the nation, and a pandemic that has unfortunately took many, many lives, I have full trust that Labour will deliver again. In the 2000s, Labour found a way to fund local governments without raising taxes on working people or expecting them to pay the price for change. Therefore, of course, as Bristol Labour councillors, we support this motion with or without the amendment.
Councillor Brown for the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. This is a non-political speech brought to you by the number 72. I want to thank the movers of this motion, and I think all of us in this chamber, whether new or returning councillors, are aware of the many pressures on local government funding. I know I've spoken about it many times before, and so for those who are returning councillors, I can only apologise for repeating myself. Given the importance of the issue, it is of little surprise that there was more than one motion submitted on this subject. Whilst I and my group might take issue with some of the phraseology in your version of the motion, we are happy to support it. Further, we thank the movers and other parties for accepting the alterations. These are designed to strengthen the motion. First, the reference to specific challenges. Councillor Weston has already mentioned one. The things I had in mind were also recognising that Bristol has high numbers of students, and that has an impact on our council tax base. And we've also got a high number of heritage assets that we have to look after. Second, a call to address inadequacies and anomalies in the current council tax system. Houses have not been revalued for years. The number and range of bands does not reflect the true range of values of property across the city. I mean, I would abolish it altogether and replace it with something else entirely, but some form of reform is required. Third, support for the local government associations Make It Local campaign. This is a cross-party campaign which highlights how local government can make real and lasting change in cities like our own and across the country, but it does need funding and support. It's all very well to talk about additional powers for the region, but we need funding to make things happen. And finally, a call for work to develop a cross-party consensus on the funding of social care. That we know that that's crippling our council, we know it's crippling council budgets across the country, and again, it's absolutely essential that it gets sorted once and for all, and it gets sorted with cross-party support. Now, there have been welcome noises from the new Labour government about multi-year settlements and restoring local and some of the things that have already been mentioned, and those are welcome. And I noticed today that local government has been restored to the name of the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government as well, which is reassuring to see. But this is a great first step, but what we need is more. And I hope that colleagues on my left will be talking to the new Chief Secretary. I know a number of you have his telephone number. So I hope you talk to him about loosening the purse strings and giving local government a fair settlement. Thank you.
Councillor Weston for the Conservatives, please.
I'm back. Right. Thank you very much. I actually need to correct the record, and I do apologise for this. Councillor Brown's been very generous. Apparently, he was the one that introduced the specific challenges. So, Councillor Renard, I'm happy to say I no longer agree with anything you said. Sadly, Councillor Brown now has that, but I'm sure he will appreciate that. For us, the big problem with this is when we start talking about progressive forms of council tax, change, and how you want to do that. Because actually, Bristol is a hot housing market. Housing prices and housing values are incredibly high. If you start introducing council tax revaluing, you are probably going to push up the council tax everyone pays quite a lot over large swathes of the city. And we're certainly not going to support a motion that does that without having the detail. We're not going to give carte blanche. Now, in Wales, they think that some will go up, some will go down, and it roughly nets off. But Bristol is a different housing market. So that challenge is very different. So we're not going to be supporting that. I don't think anyone will be shocked at this one. I would also reiterate, when it comes to this kind of motion, I'll give it again to the Labour Party on this one. When you do an amendment, don't include text that is the alteration as if the amendment, your amendment, the way you do it, is incredibly confusing to understand where it all fits in. And so I make that plea for myself. There are some things that I think, though, that are good, that you are right to push through, but from the progressive tax side of doing things, we're not. We do want to see a multi-year budget settlement. The Make It Local campaign is a good idea. I think the problem with that will be is we need to show government, the new Labour government, that we can act responsibly with the powers we've got. It doesn't take very much to think about the current housing issues, Bristol Energy and all this, to show that the powers we've used before haven't always gone smoothly. So there needs to be a certain level of competency back in Bristol's government on it. But overall, I'm afraid we won't be supporting it. I know you'll all be shocked. Please don't shed any tears. And I think we can move to vote as soon as is humanly possible, because the next motion is a good motion. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Councillor Pryor, would you like to respond as mover of the motion?
I would. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So just to summarise and just to respond to some of the points that have been made in the discussion. So Tom, thank you to you and your Labour colleagues for supporting the motion. You did mention there's no magic wand. We did give one in our speech in the motion, taxing wealth. There are magic wands actually. If we start actually implementing that, well, that's to be decided. But the point is that there are things you can do. There's the CTRS red line and budget discussions. That's a really important point that you've made. It would be useful to talk about that more, and I think that's something that's an ongoing discussion. Rob, over there. This is a ringing endorsement of government policy, yes, but it also critiques government policy, of course. And it's really good that we do agree on multi-year funding settlements and that you have agreed to that. We genuinely, I was really pleased to see that in the Labour manifesto, and I hope that will be something that is brought in. Mark, you said, what would you have cut? Nothing. It doesn't work. I mean, I think the public has sort of given their verdict on that one, Mark. And also you said about council tax re-evaluating. We could just abolish council tax, introduce a land value tax, something that actually is progressive, that brings in the same amount of revenue. Joss, thank you. I appreciate your points. I don't have anything further to say. Zoe, after the devastation of World War II, the Attlee government invested, okay, and it borrowed to invest. It gave a massive boost to people, and we're not worthy to the Attlee government. We need you to do the same thing, and I know that there's many in your party who support that and want to see that additional investment, just loads more into local government. Without raising taxes on working people, we agree. It was actually in our manifesto to commit to no increases in the basic rate of income tax during the cost of living crisis. Finally, Andrew, thanks for bringing Sesame Street into the chamber. That was a really appreciated thing. So we agree on that council tax reform. It would be good to work with you as well on that at any point, and anyone else for that matter. So I'm really looking forward to our Green MPs pushing Labour to borrow and actually just reject this discredited economic orthodoxy that says we cannot borrow to invest and we cannot tax wealth. We have to do it to get the accountability, the mechanisms that mean that we can have good local government public services. Thank you very much.
Okay, we now move to the vote. Once again, it's an e-vote, and once again, please make sure you're in your allocated seats so your vote is recorded accurately. You are voting on the unamended motion, and the vote will be open for 15 seconds. Please vote now. So 456 against 7, abstentions 0. So that motion has been carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's get on with the silver motion, ending violence against women and girls. This motion will be shown on the screen in the room during the proposing speech. I'd like to ask Councillor Kay Bales of the Labour Group to move the motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to move this motion today. It's not meant to be a complete plan to end violence against women and girls. The council alone can't do that, but it can play a part. I'm taking this motion forward as we want this issue to be at the forefront of everyone's minds during policy committee meetings. Bristol can and should take lead on this. This is an issue that affects women and girls across Bristol, and particularly working class communities like mine. A statistic that truly shocked me is that in Hartcliffe and Withywood, Quality of Life survey found the number of people who think domestic abuse is a private matter is 22.5% compared to 7.4% across Bristol. That statistic is appalling. I don't like the wording of the question as it reinforces the idea that it could be a private matter. It's not. But the statistic is revealing and concerning. It's almost a quarter of people. Bristol is not just trendy high streets and leafy suburbs, but working class estates and left behind communities. The council needs to remember this. This issue affects all of our communities, but like so many issues, deprived communities get it worse. Change starts at home, which is why the motion would make all Bristol City Council councillors and staff are trained in recognising the signs of domestic abuse and responding to disclosures of domestic and sexual violence. We want a commitment that funding for specialist services needs to be protected and, if possible, increased in any budgets. We need multi-agency approach and should be proactive with this, working with partners and the police. Importantly, this motion would mean full council would get annual updates on the work tackling violence against women and girls. It's not an issue that can be limited to one or two policy committees. It cuts across all councils' work and should be at the front of all councillors' minds. I get that this motion can't solve everything, and the resolves section of the motion are just a few things that we could be doing. We welcome everyone's good ideas and hopefully look forward to working with everyone on this. So I hope everyone can support this motion and keep ending violence against women and girls at the front of the council's agenda.
Thank you very much. Councillor Durston to second, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On the Saturday just gone, while so many of us across our city enjoyed the quarter-finals of the Euros, many women and children would have been at home, isolated and afraid. Football doesn't cause domestic abuse, but for those living in fear of domestic abuse at home, a major football tournament is a time when existing abuse can get worse. Recent figures suggest that domestic abuse increased by 38% when England lost a match and 26% when they won or drew. The annual report from the Police and Crime Commissioner showed that there were 5 reported rapes and 60 domestic violence incidents per day across Avon and Somerset. These numbers are not just statistics, they represent real lives shattered by violence. The numbers are staggering, yet they are only the tip of the iceberg. Only 18% of women who experienced partner abuse in the last 12 months reported the abuse to the police, and on average, only 13 to 15% of women who experience sexual violence ever report the crime committed against them. This must show the need for an urgent call to action. Women and girls in Bristol deserve better. The impact of domestic abuse and sexual violence is devastating and can be lifelong. Domestic and sexual violence trauma leaves an indelible footprint on those who experience it, and the effects ripple out in our communities, impacting mental health, employment, education, and the well-being of families and neighbourhoods. The social and economic costs are huge, affecting us all. We must work to challenge the culture that underpins and normalises violence against women. A pyramid of violence against women exists where harmful beliefs and attitudes sit at the bottom, moving to street harassment and unwanted touching in the middle, and ending with extreme acts of violence and abuse at the top. These things are not unconnected. We should influence and affect change by setting an example within the council and beyond. Any strategy to combat violence against women must be inclusive, acknowledging how intersecting inequalities and multiple disadvantage can exacerbate trauma, experience of violence, and present barriers to justice and support. No one should be left behind. Playing our part in ending violence against women and girls must be a top priority for Bristol City Council, as it is for a Labour government, and requires a long-term holistic approach that sits across communities, schools, specialist organisations and policing. The Council must be a leader in promoting gender equality and ensuring that our internal and external policies reflect a zero-tolerance stance towards domestic and sexual violence. I urge full Council to support this motion so that together we can commit to a future where domestic abuse and sexual violence is not tolerated and every woman and girl in Bristol can live freely and safe from violence and abuse. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now have a round of speakers on the motion. Firstly, Councillor Gemfrey on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this motion to full council. The Green Party are very pleased to support it because misogyny is rife and it's rearing its ugly head in new ways. For example, through the development of incel culture, the myth of the alpha male, which spread the lies that men are automatically entitled to women's time, attention and bodies. And this leads to domestic abuse, which can appear as coercive control, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and all too often physical abuse and violence, which can be fatal. It also manifests as honour-based violence, which can include all these elements, as well as child marriage, virginity testing, enforced abortion, forced marriage and female genital mutilation. Research suggests that at least one honour killing occurs in the UK every month, and that's likely to be an underestimate. Every woman here will have faced abuse or harassment grounded in sexism. Everybody here will know someone who has been the victim of significant domestic abuse, whether they've told you about it or not. And so to the men in the room, if the women in your lives tell you about abuse or harassment, believe them and support them. And if you hear other men repeating sexist jokes or comments, call them out on it. We want to note that those affected include non-binary people as well, many of whom are assumed to be women. So we stand against all forms of violence encouraged and perpetrated by misogyny and the patriarchy. And being aware of the signs of domestic abuse and challenging misogynistic attitudes is something we can all achieve as a starting point. So we're delighted that the Council are taking this seriously and committing to educating our staff about this and supporting our staff who are going through it. So yes, the Green Party will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Tate for the Labour Group, please.
Esteemed colleagues, today I stand to support the motion brought by Councillor Kerry Bells and Lisa Dunstan and the Labour Group, addressing the crucial issues of violence against women and girls. The statistics are harrowing. 1 in 3 women aged 16 to 59 will experience domestic violence, and 2 women a week are killed by a current or former partner in England and Wales. Over 500,000 women are raped or sexually assaulted each year. These numbers represent real lives and families affected. Women and girls from marginalised community groups are disproportionately affected. As Councillor Bells touched on, this greatly increases the struggles within deprived areas. Lesbian women, trans people and disabled women face higher rates of violence, compounding their struggles and barriers to get support. Ending violence against women and girls requires a collective and proactive approach across communities, schools, specialist organisations and policing. We must change the culture that normalises violence against women and girls and influence change within our council and beyond. Bristol should support this motion and set an example for other councils. We must lead in creating behaviour change and shifting attitudes towards violence against women and girls, showing our commitment to a safe and equitable environment for all women and girls. The call to action is the leaders of the council, policy committee chairs and all councillors to keep ending violence against women and girls on the council's policy agenda. We must ensure all councillors and staff are trained to recognise and respond to domestic and sexual violence. Working with the Avon and Somerset Police and Crime Commissioner, we must keep this a policy priority. Let us unite in supporting this motion and take concrete steps towards ending violence against women and girls. Together we can create a safer, more just society for every woman and girl. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Williams for the Liberal Democrats, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to both Kerry and Lisa for bringing forward this important motion and for the passion with which they spoke to it, and indeed all subsequent speakers have spoken as well. It is an incredibly important issue, which I'm sure there is a consensus, as Mark was saying earlier, right around the Chamber. Of course, violence against women and girls can take many forms. We tend to think of the physical aspect of it, but it can be mental abuse too, controlling behaviour, including financial behaviour as well. We must remember that we need to spot all manifestations of violence against women and girls. And it also can take place within same-sex relationships as well. And indeed, I've had experience in my previous roles of domestic violence against men by a female partner as well. So I think we need to be holistic in our approach. We never know when people are going to come forward to us with some examples of this. It might happen to all of us when we don't expect it. Of course, in the past, I used to hold constituency surgeries, and I was reminded when this motion came up, when my then constituent and now councillor colleague, Christine Townsend, came to my surgery to tell me about female genital mutilation, something which I knew as an acronym, but had no comprehension whatsoever about how vile that practice is that was taking place within many communities in Bristol at the time. Christine later, with a colleague, arranged for some incredibly brave girls, teenage girls, to come and see me, to tell me about it in graphic detail about what they had been through or what their elder sisters had been to. I then met some of them at their schools, but then was able to use my role to take this to the heart of government, because I ended up being on as the only male member of the Cabinet Committee on Violence Against Women and Girls, which was at the time chaired by Theresa May, and to talk to my colleague Lynn Featherstone, who was at the Department for International Development. And we embedded a policy against FGM in the British government and also in an international policy as well. So that one initial encounter not only changed policy in Britain, it actually changed the lives of girls thousands of miles away as well. So we never know when people come to us what we can actually do and use our positions as elected representatives to change the lives of people for the better. Now, turning to the recommendations, all of which I'm happy to support, both on behalf of the Liberal Democrats, but also in my role as chair of the Public Health and Communities Committee. My committee will certainly be taking this aspect of our remit incredibly seriously. I'm lucky to have Lisa as a member of the committee. Emily, as the vice chair, I know cares about this issue very much as well. So we will certainly be doing whatever we can to combat violence against women and girls in our city. I will be seeking a meeting with Claire Moody as soon as possible, and I do support an annual report coming to full council, either on its own or as a part of our own committee's report. But thank you, Kerry and Lisa, once again for giving us this opportunity to discuss this very important issue.
Thank you. Councillor Morris for the Conservative Group, please.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. The rise and continuation of violence against women and girls is very concerning. I agree with the motion where it says the requirement is for a multifaceted approach to address the many issues and the reasons why. Many of these issues are very complex, and thus the solutions will require commitment and focus from everyone. And the Conservative Group, we are happy to play our part. One thing is very clear: it will not be easy to deliver success due to the wide variety of issues which impact this topic and the degree to which views vary across the city. Councillor Bell has mentioned that almost a quarter of residents in Hartcliffe and Withywood believe domestic abuse is a private issue. In Redland, it's less than 1%. Using the same Bristol Quality of Life survey, over a quarter of residents in Lawrence Hill have been sexually harassed in the last year, while Stockwood is below 3%. These are significant variations which would suggest there is not one answer to resolve all of these issues. We need locally designed and delivered interventions. And the aims and the motions are laudable. I didn't quite understand all of the wording, but I'm sure that will come out as we take that forward. You know, we must call out abuse to female representatives here in this chamber. You know, I've been quite upset to see some of the comments foisted upon them. You know, I think they get more than their fair share of nasty comments and abuse. And with the change in how the council operates, I hope the tone in the chamber will be less aggressive, which I think in the past has emboldened some people to perpetrate such violence on keyboard warriors and things like that. I'm not quite sure why the motion has been brought now, because over 8 years of the last administration, I would have thought Labour would have had a good idea of the issues and the work that's being done so far. And with several years' data, I'm sure we can see what is happening, what has been done, and what plans are in place already for this to be delivered. Similarly, the motion seems to suggest we haven't been engaging with city partners, but I'm sure we have been. You know, particularly as the Chief Constable is the national lead for adult and sexual offences. So we support this motion, but suggest that before we go forward, we understand where we are now, what we are doing, and what the plans are already within the council. Thank you.
Councillor Bales, would you like to respond as mover of the motion?
I'll reserve.
Okay. So we will now move to the vote. This will be an e-vote. Once again, please make sure you're in your allocated seats so your vote is recorded accurately. You are voting on the motion and the vote will be open for 50 seconds. Cast your votes now.
I can try it. Yeah, I mean, it's good to say what it's on.
Okay, well that's unanimous. So I think that has been carried. Thank you very much, everyone. So that concludes the Silver motion and also concludes today's meeting. The next meeting of full council will be held on Tuesday, the 10th of September. See you there.